Sadiq Khan, hello.
Good to see you again.
You too, how's it going?
Good actually, a bit cold, but there you go.
Today is the day we're leaving. How are you feeling?
Well, look, London's been dragged out of the European Union. Many Londoners are EU citizens and they help make London the greatest city in the world, and that's not going to change.
I wonder if there's a certain level, there must be a certain level of introspection, a certain level perhaps of guilt about what's happened and where we are. Do you feel, what are your emotions? Do you feel personally responsible? Do you feel like you could have done more? What are you thinking?
Well, look, of course, it's heartbreaking that the country voted to leave the EU, but what brings me a huge source of pride is London voted overwhelmingly to remain in the EU because we see the benefits of close ties with our friends, allies in the European Union. We are leaving, we're being dragged out as a city, but I'm really confident that we're going to carry on being the greatest city in the world. We're not going to stop being open-minded, outward-looking, pluralistic. We're home to grime and garage music. We're home to Platform 9 3/4 and Paddington Bear. We're home to some of the best gigs, festivals and clubs in the world. We're home to the most diverse city in the world. That's not going to change.
On the broader countrywide perspective, right? You know, London voted to remain. We all know it. But the adoption of this second referendum policy, which Labour has sort of moved towards, you are probably the most high-profile advocate of that policy, and it's what voters punished the Labour Party for in the election. Will you accept some level of personal responsibility for that happening, for Labour's electoral defeat? Because we've seen a report today, a leaked internal report from the Labour Party. 750,000 people voted for the Lib Dems, similar number for pro-Brexit parties, and an even larger number just didn't turn out at all. And Brexit was a key factor in that. You must accept some level of responsibility for it.
I'd say to anybody who so quickly can draw such profound conclusions about the worst defeat the Labour Party suffered since 1935 should just be treated with a bit of caution. I'm quite clear, one of the reasons why London is the greatest city in the world is our diversity. Europeans, who are Londoners by the way, contribute hugely towards us being a successful city economically, socially and culturally. And I'll continue to stand up for London's values. And London's values are pluralism, internationalism and being open to others. We've been open for more than 1,000 years to people, trade and ideas. And as long as I'm the mayor, that's not going to change.
So Londoners are waking up, it's happened, we've Brexited. What's different?
Well, the key thing I'd say to fellow Londoners, but also those watching around the world, is we're not going to change. Our underlying strengths are going to carry on being what they are, not just where we are in the time zone, not just the English language, but our fantastic diversity. Look at our businesses in London, from financial sector to legal sector to accountancies, but also look at the tech sector, look at culture, look at the creative industries, look at life sciences, look at our universities. That ain't going to change. We're still going to love croissants and cappuccinos and all those things. That's not going to change.
So that's London. What about the rest of the country?
Well, I think we've got a great future ahead of us as a city and a country. We've got to be confident. We've got to be upbeat. Sure, there'll be bumps along the road. Look, we're the country that gave the world great music, from the Beatles to Adele to Stormzy. We're the country that gave the world great culture, whether it's movies, whether it's the plays of Shakespeare. We're the country that have given the world the World Wide Web. I'm claiming that one, Tim Berners-Lee. Yeah, look, we're leaving the European Union, but London's going to carry on being a European city. We're going to carry on being a European country. We've got to make sure we're confident going forward. We can't spend all our time looking in the rearview mirror.
If that's the case, is there a little bit of what was all the fuss about? We're still going on, things are largely the same. I'm sure a lot of people, there won't be much of a tangible change, at least not for a certain period of time after we leave.
Well, look, it's going to be bumpy, particularly in the first few weeks and months. We've got to do a deal with the European Union. I'll, as mayor, be lobbying the government to make sure we do a good deal with the European Union. They're our closest trading ally. They help contribute towards the GDP of our country. We've got to make sure we can have a good trade with them, both in terms of the goods that we sell and we import, but also services, really, really important, but also people. We need Europeans from the EU to come to London and the country to work in the NHS, to work in social care, to work in culture, to work in tech, to work in our banks, to work in all the jobs that are being created in London and around the country. So it's really important that all of us lobby the government to do a good deal with the EU, but also, of course, look to doing good deals elsewhere as well. The reason why we're heartbroken at leaving the EU is we've seen during my lifetime no evidence of war in mainland Europe. We've seen in my lifetime not simply not being suspicious of our European allies, but also turning them into friends and joining our family, and I don't want that to change.
How likely are we to see a level playing field introduced between our country and the EU? Boris Johnson said he's not going to do it. The EU seem pretty insistent. What do you think is the most likely outcome?
Look, what's really important is that we put aside the jingoism and the patriotism and work in a constructive way to do a good deal with the European Union. It's in our interests to do a good deal with our nearest partners, countries that are nearest to us, but it's also in the EU's interest as well. I see as the Mayor of London the fact that our competitors aren't cities in the EU, they're our partners and our collaborators. Our competitors are the likes of New York, Singapore and Hong Kong. And my worry is that the talent we have in London could leave London and go to those parts of the world. I don't want that to happen. I want to continue to keep what we have, but to attract others to come to London as well.
Touched on jingoism there. In the European Parliament, Nigel Farage and the Brexit Party MEPs waving a load of miniature Union Jacks around, cut off by the Speaker and then ejected for breaking the rules. What's your take on that kind of sort of press stunt?
I think we should all reflect on the fact that when members of the European Parliament from 27 countries were faced with a jingoistic, horrible speech where the Union flag was being waved in an aggressive and provocative way, the response from the MEPs was to sing a song written by a Scottish poet, Auld Lang Syne. It was sung in a awkward, centrist dad sort of way, which many of us can relate to, and that should fill you with joy in relation to the affection with which we're held. But I was incredibly proud as not just a Londoner, but as a European, seeing those members of the European Parliament from different countries across Europe, clearly heartbroken we're leaving, but clearly open to continue the friendship they've got with us.
It's interesting actually that you made that point. You just sort of made me think that Nigel Farage, the way he cast it was globalists versus populists, right? But I would say that perhaps they've been slightly grittier, slightly meaner, slightly more cutting in the way that they've conducted themselves. And perhaps then when you just said centrist dads singing Auld Lang Syne, has the sort of European Union, the case for it's not being made in a sort of cool way? Do you know what I'm getting at here?
One of the problems that we saw during the referendum campaign was the lack of an emotional connection between people in this country and the European Union. And one of the things about politics and winning elections is you've got to appeal to the brain and the heart. And one of the lessons from that campaign, but also one of the lessons we've seen in elections in the past where people who've got the values that I've got haven't won those elections, not just in our country but around the world, is the inability of us as politicians to connect with the heart and argue emotionally why it's important to vote for me. And that's one of the reasons why I'll be campaigning over the next few weeks before the mayoral election to reassure Londoners that as long as I'm the mayor, I'll continue to stand up for London values, and it's really important we do so.
Do you think the UK will ever rejoin the EU?
Well, let's wait and see. I think in the near future it's unlikely for us to be rejoining the European Union. It depends what happens in relation to our success outside of the EU. It depends what happens to the EU. I've thought for some time the EU needs some reform. There is a disconnect across Europe, across the European countries with peoples of France and Germany and Italy and Poland and other parts of the EU with the structures and institutions in Brussels and Strasbourg. I think they need to reform. But let's wait and see. What's important, though, is for us not to lose sight of the fact that although we're leaving the EU, we ain't leaving Europe.
Do you think it is likely that Brexit will trigger this wave of populism, a domino effect across the rest of Europe?
No, I hope not. What I do know, though, is that we see across Europe the rise of nativist populist movements. We are seeing people, politicians included, trying to divide peoples based upon the colour of their skin or the colour of their flag. What we have to do as progressives is make sure we remind people about all the things we've achieved together as colleagues in the European Union, as colleagues in the United Nations, but also as colleagues with the same progressive values. It's really important that we argue the point. It's by the strength of our common endeavour. It's by working together that we can achieve far more, and it's really important those of us who are progressives make that point.
From losing to winning, I think you would agree with me that the next leader of the Labour Party needs to be a winner. You've won a mayoral election, you've won an election, so why aren't you standing?
I've got the best job in the world. I'm the mayor of the greatest city in the world and I'm delivering for London, but it's important for me to accept with humility that we need more than one term to achieve for this great city. That's why I'm standing again on May the 7th. There's a two-horse race between me and the Tory candidate. I'm quite keen to make sure we continue to stand up for London values. That's the job I'm focused on. The key thing for the next leader of the Labour Party is to be somebody that can learn the right lessons from the defeat on December the 12th. We lost, and we lost badly. We didn't win the argument. we lost the argument. That's why we lost the election. So the next leader is going to be somebody who understands the real lessons of the defeat on December the 12th, has a route map to winning the next general election, has a proper path to victory, and understands that if you're a member of the Labour Party, the only way you improve people's lives for the better is by winning elections. Failure is failure. There's no heroic failure as far as I'm concerned.
Sounds a lot like Lisa Nandy to me.
Let's wait and see which one of those candidates over the course of the next few weeks sets out a vision for the future. All of the candidates are interesting. All of them have got experience, and I'm looking forward to a contest where we've got a debate of ideas, where candidates are fizzing with ideas, but have a vision, not just of how we win the election, but also how our country can be united. The Labour Party's got to be united. Those who voted Remain have got to be united with those who voted to leave. The South, that includes London, has got to be united with the rest of the country. I'm looking for a leader who's going to bring our country back together again.
Looks like Keir Starmer may well have it tied up, but at least there's some elements of the other two could perhaps go on to win it, perhaps even Emily Thornberry if she makes it there. But in the deputy leadership race, Angie Rayner has essentially been the anointed one by the looks of things. It looks like she's going to make it. Your successor in Tooting, Rosanna Allen-Khan, is standing there. I wonder what you make of how she's been getting on.
Well, I think all the candidates in the deputy leadership contest and the leadership contest have had exciting offers. I'm friends with many of these candidates, so I've got to be very careful. Many
I can
of them
tell.
are my friends, and but look, I wish them all the best of luck. Angela, Rosanna, Dawn, all cracking candidates, all friends of mine. In the leadership, I'm very close to Keir, Emily and Lisa. Wish them all the best of luck. Let's wait and see what happens. The key thing is to make sure we get back into the habit of winning elections. One of the things I've learned since I've been mayor from May 2016 is the difference you can make by winning elections. That's how you change people's lives for the better. Whether it's council homes being built, genuinely affordable homes being built, freezing TfL fares, addressing the air quality crisis, investing in young people, it's by winning elections.
Well, that's what I'm getting at, because you've done it. You've won an election, and your party needs you, perhaps. Worst defeat since 1930s. Is there not a higher calling here? Is there not an argument to say that you could be the person that turns it around?
Well, I say with humility, when I see what we've managed to achieve in just 3.5 years in London, not just from the night tube and the night overgrounds to freezing fares to making sure we make our city safer by investing in young people as well as police, by fixing the air quality crisis, by having a target to go to zero carbon by 2030. We've done a lot in 3.5 years, but I need another term to do much, much more with a great team around me. But also I've got the humility to realise there's great talent in the Labour Party. I'm looking to that talent to winning the selection, to be the next leader, then working together as Team Labour to win the next general election. The country needs a Labour government.
Sadiq Khan, thank you.